Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's lights out and away we go.
Alberto's got away beautifully at the start of the great race.
Who's that got off?
Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
Welcome to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show, brought to you by ProKart's Race Centre.
Far enough back, he's going to make the lunge down the inside.
The ultimate pit stop,
The safety car is coming in
fueling your passion for motorsport.
with an emotional moment that means everything.
All of the latest results, analysis, and interviews.
Roar the drivers on to the final lap of this race.
I'm Jamie Lemura, motorsport enthusiast, historian, and media presenter.
And I'm Lee Harrison, motorsport professional, Sprint Master Karts race driver, and Formula One alumni.
Welcome to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show, proudly brought to you by ProKart's Race Centre. A very, very special episode once again this week where we have young Gun Max Walton joining us. Max, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. Hello, Lee. How are you, my friend?
Great.
Mate, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for coming on to the show. Let's tell us a little bit about Max. Where were you born? How did it all start?
Well, I was born in Brisbane and I got into go-karting by my mum and my dad. My mum raced cars and she was the first lady Australian driver to race for Australia, and dad was a national Australian champion in karting and V8 utes.
There you go. It's some pretty strong. Not too bad. So you were destined to race a go-kart or get into motorsport.
Yes.
In regards to you getting into karting, like what age did you start? And, was it something that you wanted to do or was it something you were encouraged to do?
Well, I wanted to do karting since I watched dad and people drive around the track, because I was at the track since the day I was born, basically. And I first got into go-kart at 4 years in my dad's shed, driving around with a strap in the back of the go-kart running behind me.
Yeah. And what can you remember? What brand of go-kart was it? What was the engine? What was that sort of stuff?
There was a 4-stroke and OTK, Tony Kart.
Nice. Something about OTKs and 4-strokes at the moment. They seem to go very, very well, Lee.
Yeah, you reckon?
Oh, well,
Not as good as a Sprint Master.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. But did you win a first race win? I mean, was it at very young, or have you kind of built your way up to where you're at?
My first race win was actually the very first race I did at 7. I won my first race. Yes, it was at Cooloola.
So Queensland. All right. So is that more regional, or is it like I'm not familiar with my Queensland geography.
Well, it's just a track that I don't really know. I haven't been there for a while now.
What are the things that you like about the sport? What is it that you love about karting?
The competition's really, really big, especially over in Europe. Much better over in Europe. Racing, it's good, hard, fair. Overall, it's good.
Yep. Tell us, how did you get into Europe? What was the journey behind that?
So the first time I ever raced in Europe was the World Championships in 2022, which I did all right. And the way I got into the Driver Academy, I got picked out of all the K2 field, and I was the one that represented Australia and finished second in the FIA Academy Trophy Championship.
I was going to say, going back, we're like screening through this, but when you first got into being able to drive the karts alone and dad wasn't running around with a strap behind your back, how many weeks, months did you do of practice, like just going to the track and cutting laps and laps and laps before you entered your first race meeting? Or was it like the day that you turned 7, you jumped into your first race meeting?
Well, I was doing lots and lots of laps before I started racing. So pretty much nearly every week or every weekend after school, I pretty much get in the go-kart around the extreme karting track, which is now closed down, sadly. And then I got old enough to go, I got into a mini rock at the age of 6 and then started driving around the extreme karting complex. And I just kept doing laps and laps and laps until I turned 7. I went to my first race meeting and won. And I went to a Kart then when I got into a mini rock.
We in the interview that we had with Sebastian going back a couple of weeks ago now, one of the big things was that he sort of had taken away was just how more aggressive the racing is in Europe compared to, say, here in Australia. And it was a shock to him. It took a little while to adjust. I mean, did you have to go through, was it the same for you, or did you adapt to it straight away?
Yes. So in the World Championships in 2022, it took me a while to adapt how they raced. And when we raced, I didn't really have the aggression as they did. So I fell back a little bit every race, and I just slowly worked my way out, but I just couldn't because all the aggression. And compared to Australia, it's much more like cleaner, and there's not much racing going on, like hard racing. And then when I went back to the FIA, went back to the championships, I adapted it quickly, and I just drove properly and just was smart of my decisions I made on the track, and then I got to where I was at the front.
And I guess for yourself, with I guess with the racing and being able to adapt, tell us about the class that you're racing in, and that type of thing as well.
So at the moment, I race K3 Junior. It's light and heavy, and K2 Junior, which is the elite class for juniors. And I have now become Australian champion in the K2 category, and I have won two state championships in the K2, and I've won one state champ, two in total in K3, but one this year.
Yeah, and you were pretty dominant this year in KA2. You had the championship wrapped up with a whole round to spare, was it? You didn't even really have to rock up at Todd Road. It makes it nice and easy if you can be so dominant, eh?
Yes, it was much easier because the other people in the team had to fight for it. And in the Cadet 12 category, my teammate had 1 point separated for him in second. So it was really good just watching them fight it out, and I had nothing to worry about.
And what do you put down like the success of this year? Like it was absolutely phenomenal. Did you work really hard in the off season, or was there something you guys found with the chassis this year that was just standing out? What was attributed to the success this year?
Well, so it's the dominant thing started when I came back from Europe in 2022 at Worlds. So when I came back from there, I won 4 race meetings in a row. So the junior sprint, the rock meeting, the 2 rounds of rock, and other race meetings, which I can't really remember. And then I came into AKC, and I was winning every race in Monado, but I just didn't have that really pace for the final because I didn't save tyre or anything, and I wasn't smart enough to race for the lead. Then I went to Victorian States with K2 and K3 Junior Light, and I won K3 Junior Light and K2 in the same weekend, blue plate in Victoria. And because I decided to be more smart and save tyre in K2, and the way I won in K3, I originally came second, but the guy in first got underweight, so I got the win. And then I went to AKC again and was more and just racing K2, more smart. And at Wanneroo, it was lots and lots of tyre deck, so I had to save a lot of tyre to get to the front and lead in the final. And that's what I did, and I finished every race. And I saved more tyre than the ones that basically DNF'd every race. So then I put my head down. So I did that every round, and then just put my head down and came across the line first.
It sounds like that first trip in Europe, and then when you returned was really the turning point. Can you tell us, was there anything that you had taken, and it's probably a silly question, but was there anything that you had taken from Europe outside of obviously the racing intensity, maybe from a setup point of view or sort of a technical aspect that when you came back here you felt had given you a bit of an advantage against your competition?
Well, I came back as a better driver because I learned a lot of things over there that I haven't learned in Australia, like the racing, the racecraft, and me as a driver just got better. just got better overall.
Follow us on socials, join us on our website, negativecamber.co, and be sure to subscribe to the Negative Camber Club for access to exclusive content, episode previews, and special deals from our amazing partners.
And in regards to, say, the quality of competition, the drivers here in Australia, how would you think they would stack up in comparison to what you're racing in Europe?
Well, so say the K2 category, there's some aggressive drivers, but there's some really like unaggressive drivers that are like clean, let everyone go by when they're at the inside. So if the non-aggressive drivers go over to Europe, they will struggle because over in Europe it's really, really aggressive, and they will like make a pass from 4 car lengths back, and they'll make it and stick their nose in, and you can't let them go past you in Europe, otherwise you go back from like 3rd to 10th in one corner. And the aggressive drivers will actually do all right because they know how to, because when someone's passing you, they will know what to do so they can cut them off or just keep them behind them.
Yeah, I can't imagine being able to make a pass from that far. I mean, mind you, we're in a low horsepower go-kart. Yeah. But I mean, someone like yourself, Lee, would have had that experience in terms of even the courage to actually, commit to the maneuver from that far back, but also having trust in the driver that you're driving against, that they're not going to, just literally cut you off at the legs. So, I mean, that would take a lot of confidence and trust from both sides, really.
Well, it's just confidence. If you know you can do it, you got to go for it because you can't hesitate, especially in Europe. To say K2, if you hesitate, you'll get passed. And in Europe, if you hesitate, you'll get passed by like 4 drivers straight away. So it's like on the point every lap, every time, every corner.
And there's a different skill set over there as well. Like to answer your question, Jamie, like the trust and the confidence comes with knowing that you're racing against the best drivers at the top level. Like when you start out with the beginner levels, like in like 4SS, like we've got now, some of the perception and the depth of perception that the drivers have is not developed. Like Max would attest that you can hear people behind you, so you know where people are, and you can hear when someone's going to send it up the inside of you. So you know, well, that person's coming. I might just, rather than have a crash, I'll give them an extra half a kart width on the inside of the corner. Or, yeah, you tune your brain in differently when you're racing at that level. You know that the kart will do more and all the rest of it.
Well, with the passing side, over in Europe, you just got to have to believe in yourself that you can do it because you can't actually hesitate.
Yeah.
If you want to go for a pass, you can't, at the braking zone, you can't back out of it. You can't do a half move. If you got to make a pass, you got to send it and make it hit.
Fair enough. What team were you driving for? A team over overseas, and whereabouts were you based?
Well, overseas, so FIA. So everyone was in an equal engine, in same go-kart, same suit, same gloves and everything. So everything was the same, it's just kart setup. You couldn't change the axle. You could just basically the simple stuff. And so it was very equal. So it just basically came down, it's got the best racecraft, the best driving. And yeah, and it's just, and in the 2022 Worlds, I was driving for Prodigy, like here in Australia, or Shamik Racing over in Europe. So.
So with that FIA Academy, was it the same go-kart every single time that you had? So say, for example, you had chassis number 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you then, the second round, you went back and you got chassis number 1, 2, 3, 4 and engine number 5, 6, 7, 8? Or was it always drawn out of a pool? So you had a different engine each time and a different chassis each time just to really mix that stuff up?
So the way it works in the FIA, so you'll have the same go-kart for all 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So it works. So if you get top 5 in the racing, so if say heat 1, you get top 5, and heat 1, the bottom 5 will switch engines every time. Yeah. And that will go on till the end of heat 2. So end of heat 2. So you race heat 3 in the final because there was 4 races over there for Academy. Mm-hmm. So you go heat 3 in the final, the same engine that you had on. And the start of the weekend, every weekend, the start of it, you'll draw an engine. And that will be your engine for the whole practice until qualifying. Yeah. And then the qualifying, you'll do that thing, top 5 and bottom 5 swap engines. But it didn't really affect because all the engines were pretty much all the same.
Yeah. Did you find anything like because you obviously had a few top 5 results, did you find anything ever in any of the rounds where you thought, oh, maybe this engine isn't quite as strong as the one I had the last race?
Yeah, so some engines had more top end, some engine had more bottom end, mid-range. That's really what happened. And then the 2 rounds that they had fuel problems with the fuel pumps in our engines, because the fuel was doing something to the fuel pump, and the engine will bog down, cut out, just not start. And that would happen to me every second race of the weekend.
Wow.
First switch engines.
Now, how stressful. Right? That would have been, to come all that way to have a problem like that, probably that would have been pretty intense for you, I'd imagine.
I had to defend a lot because I had to stay in the higher, top 5 to get a good position starting the final, so I can go from there.
And get rid of that dodgy engine by the sounds of things.
Yeah. I had to stay 5 to get rid of it, which I did, which is good.
Yeah. Were you racing against some pretty big names, or any household names that we may be aware of, or say sons or daughters of F1 drivers or touring car drivers or anything of that nature?
Well, I don't really know touring car side of it, but I know for a fact there wasn't any F1 drivers, younger kids or nephews or anything. There was a lot of driver academy drivers, Alpine and that, the girls, but pretty much all the girls had an Alpine drive, and I never knew many of the names.
How do you find the tracks that you raced on in Europe compared to what you've raced on in Australia? I know you would have seen a lot more tracks in Australia than you did in Europe, but how do the tracks compare?
So 2 of my favourite tracks over there was Cremona, Italy, and Denmark in Rodby, and Cremona, and there was Trenek as well in Czech Republic. So Cremona and Trenek was tracks similar to Australia, very tight, well, lots of corners, but the track was very wide, much wider than Australia. So you can make the passes easier and just passing easier. You can dive bomb people easier, have more racing. And Denmark it was a very high speed track. So lots of slipstreams, lots of fast flowing corners, lots of slow hairpins. And the racing was actually really good there because everything was so close, and every corner you could pass. So say Denmark in Heat 1, I won the race because I was smart and decided to go to the lead. So 3 laps to go, and decided to go to the lead and blocked the first corner or third corner, the first braking zone, and blocked there, and no one else did. So everyone decided to start fighting behind me. So I pulled away and built a good gap to finish the race.
I've heard some of the tracks are nearly 12 metres wide in terms of width, which is unreal. In some, you'd probably 3, 4, 5 karts wide in some places, I'd imagine, with all the slipstream and all that sort of stuff as well. So that makes more sense as to why there'd be 4 kart length back dive bombs and stuff like that too, because you've got the width to pull it off. I remember Lee in a recent podcast had shared when he was overseas on the tools for one of his drivers that there was heaps of tyre deg and build up and that type of thing as well. And the grip levels were just out of this world compared to what a majority of us are familiar with. Did you experience that? Was that the same for yourself, or was it a little bit more similar to what you get here in Australia?
So Cremona I expected, because the Champions of Future before I went, which I didn't race, but everyone was saying that there's a lot of grip on the track, a lot of grip. There was rubber peeling off the track and everything. You can see the rubber on the track peeling off. But the race I did, there wasn't much rubber because it was hot, and then the track didn't really produce rubber onto the track. It was just gooey. There wasn't much rubber on the track. And say Denmark, there was a lot of rubber because all the high-speed corners, most of the corners you pretty much go flat out in Denmark. And the hairpins, you brake deep, carry a fair amount of speed, but use a lot of brake and tyre. And over there, the OK and OKGA category get new tyres. They get six sets of new tyres, so actually 3 rears and 3 fronts. So they they usually use two, so one front, one rear, each race, one race.
Yep.
And then for the final, they get a brand new set. Academy, you get one set for the whole race meeting to qualify to final, like Australia.
Ready to turn your karting dreams into reality? Look no further than Pro Kart's Race Centre. Imagine hitting the track in the kart of your dreams, a ride that matches your budget and aspirations perfectly. With our pre-loved kart sourcing service, we make it happen. Our experienced team isn't just about mechanics, they're dream builders. We meticulously hand-pick each kart, ensuring reliability, performance and sheer exhilaration. Whether you're a seasoned racer looking for an upgrade or a newcomer stepping into the world of karting, we're your pit crew, your partners in racing dreams. Get ready to feel the wind in your hair, the thrill in your heart and the victory at your fingertips with Pro Kart's Race Centre, where dreams truly come to life. Visit prokartsracecentre.com.au or pop in for a chat at 30 Research Road, Paraka. Pro Kart's Race Centre, fueling your dreams, igniting your potential.
You heard that the Tony Kart team and a lot of the major European teams when they're racing over there are all out in terms of infrastructure. So massive transporters for almost like a kitchen, merchandise, spare parts, all that sort of stuff as well. Same for yourself. Were you treated to that kind of level from with whoever you're racing with, or was it more almost grassroots type, but at an international level?
Well, it was basically Australia. We had, so in Academy, the Academy pits, we had pop-ups, like 4 rows of pop-ups, and each driver got like a 6 meter by 6 pop-up for your toolbox and everything, tables, go-kart and everything. One each of them, and we just had a normal truck like in Australia for parts and everything we can go to and ask the Tony Kart team. And over there, like the exact same what Lee experienced, like Tony Kart had 3 trucks, one truck for a tent and one truck for other tent for go-karts, and then one truck for food. So all the mechanic and drivers can eat in that truck and parts and all that other stuff.
It's pretty crazy setup, doesn't it? It makes some of the V8 supercar setups look pretty average.
The karting stuff is much bigger than the, say, V8 supercars in Australia.
With things like telemetry and data and that type of thing, I mean, did you have your own engineer or your own set of mechanics, or were you very much hands-on yourself in Academy and you're on the fly, kind of relying on your own sort of skill set to get you through?
So we didn't have data. So we could choose from like 3 sprockets. We had a 75, 74, and a 73. So we had to choose from each one of those sprockets, and we couldn't rely on any other drivers because they were all by themselves and had to bring their own mechanic and everything. So it was good for me because my mechanic, because I had 2 mechanics, one for round 1, and then that mechanic couldn't go to round 1 and 2. So I had John Target as my round 1 mechanic, and round 3 and 4, round 2 and 3, I had Jacob, some Italian, he's Polish, so I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he had a friend over there because he used to work for Kokoski over there in Europe, so he knows all the tracks, everything set up, and because Kokoski uses the same go-kart we use, Xpree.
Yep.
So he needed the go-kart, he needed tracks, and he just knew what to do. And he had a friend over there that worked for Kokoski, and we were always pitted beside him so we could get data if we needed. So we could, if he was faster than me or I was faster than him, he could get help.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, that just the differences between, like your journey into Europe and how much more familiar that sounds compared to, say, what Sebastian is going through at the moment, where it's literally like next level again. But there are some similarities, like, with grip and that type of thing, what you're saying too. So where to from here? So, like, have you got ambition to continue to try and make it to Formula One? I mean, I was speaking to a driver not off record the other day at our local race meet, and he's got ambitions to make it to NASCAR, which is the first time I'd heard of it, which is great. What are the plans that you've got for yourself, or what goals have you have?
So currently I'm in a GT team called Volante Rosso, if you've ever heard of that team.
Yeah, yep.
And in a few years, I'll be jumping into a Radical And so Alex Gardner, have you heard of him? And driving, he's in the team, Valente Rosso, and he drives a Radical, and he has now got an LMP3 drive for next year because he's winning the championship in the Radicals as his first year driving. So that's what I'm heading to in a few years' time.
Yeah. The Valente team, they've also just gone into GT3 and GT racing here in Australia too, haven't they? They've got better than that.
Yeah, they do the GT World Challenge and all that.
So is that the Radical getting into GT, like LMP and that sort of level of racing is where you're wanting to head down?
Well, the Radical, so I want to do the enduros, 24-hour like Le Mans and all that, the endurance stuff. And the Radicals, the LMP teams are looking at the Radical drivers all around the world, and because they think Radicals are the best cars to get into an LMP3 drive, and they are looking for the best drivers, and they'll get them to where they want to be in the endurance side of everything.
What about in the short term? Are you still? What's plans with go-karting? Obviously, we were talking before, you're coming down to South Australia next weekend for the South Australian titles. What else? What other race meetings have you got on this year? And then, you back-to-back defending your KA2 title next year, or are you going to spend more time racing in Europe next year?
So the plan this year will be, this weekend I will be racing the Rotax qualifying round for the national round. So say you got to run a qualifying round so you can win a world's ticket at the national round. Mm-hmm. So I will be doing that this weekend. And then next weekend I'll be SA. And the weekend after I'll be in New South Wales. Then I think the weekend after that will be at the national round, Rotax national round. So if I get a ticket, if I win that round, I'll get a ticket to the Rotax World Finals. And that's late December, I think. Early December. And I will be doing the summer series in seniors. So I'll be going to seniors after all that. And I'll be the Enduro, the
Todd Road one
with Harrison Hoey.
So he's teaming up with the Falcon for the Enduro. How good's that?
Yeah. They'll be a formidable team, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Can I say it's absolutely refreshing to hear that someone's got ambition to race the big endurance events like Le Mans, Sebring, Daytona, that sort of thing, because literally infinitum, every person that we've asked has said Formula One. So to hear that is really, really cool, because it's, getting into top level motorsport, I think is probably is a stretch for anyone, but it feels almost a little bit more realistic going down the path that you are compared to getting up there, throwing yourself out in Europe and just hoping that someone gives you a nice big fat contract to get into open wheelers and do all that sort of stuff as well. So what was it? Do you watch Le Mans? Do you sort of really focus on that sort of stuff, or has it just been an opportunity that's come out of the need to drive or want to drive the Radical?
Well, the Valente Rosso team gave me a Radical drive in a few years, and I had a meeting with them and wanting to go to Le Mans, like enduro and everything, endurance races, but I haven't really been watching them because I've been working with Dad, prepping the go-karts for the race weekends, the truck, getting parts in the truck because he owns Power Australia, and so I just want to race in those big races. And it's
pretty cool. Like there's such historic races. They've been around for longer than all three of us have been alive for, really. And, but they carry such a significance. And there's even class winners. It's such a massive achievement if you can get there and you can even just finish the event. We don't really appreciate Le Mans here, I think, in terms of those level endurance races here in Australia. They kind of, everyone likens it to Bathurst because that's really all we have. But La Sarthe over in France is it's another level again, and extremely fast piece of road. Yeah. What's the Radical like to drive? Or have you actually seen one?
I've never driven a Radical. Okay. I will be driving a car in the next few years, when I'm 16. It's 2 years' time.
Awesome. And I guess for your training and exercising and stuff like that, what do you do outside of the car?
So my stepmom is a PT. train I train with her and with my mum. So that's what I'm training with them, or I'm building go-karts, getting go-karts ready for the next weekend.
A huge thank you goes out to our podium partner, Karts Race Centre, and our incredible sponsors. Your partnership allows us to continue bringing you this show and dive deeper into the world of motorsports. If your business adds value to the motorsport community, get in touch with us to become a Negative Camber partner.
Do you do sim racing or anything as well to keep sharp? Like a lot of drivers tend to play around on the computer. What about yourself?
So yes, I am on the sim. I haven't been on the sim for a while because my PC I left it on for a while when I went to Europe and I forgot about it. It kind of stopped working for a while, but I'll be trying to get that. I'm trying to get that fixed. So I'm usually on it pretty much a lot of times.
What sort of sim, what sort of software or what program do you normally do your sim work with?
I don't have the expensive stuff because I don't really need it, but I will be getting it soon because I didn't really need it from when I started karting. And I will be getting, so right now I've got a next level sim with the Fanatec DD1 steering wheel, like the blue thing, one steering wheel. Yeah, I've got that so far, but I will be later on in the years go by, we'll be getting a proper sim.
Yeah. And what sort of program are you racing on? Are you like Assetto Corsa or Kartcraft or iRacing?
It will be iRacing or Car Racing Pro.
Yeah, the sim nerd out of the two of us is the guy at the bottom of the screen there. So if you need help with sim stuff, he's your man. Yeah. For me, I need the real stuff, man. I need to feel the G-forces and all that sensation. Computer games for me is PlayStation. That's about it. So, but yeah, I have actually driven Lee's sim. When was it? Late last year, I reckon. Yeah, and that was pretty cool. All jokes aside, you've got the full setup though, haven't you, mate? You've got pedal box, proper seat, all the screens and all that sort of stuff. It's next level. So I can appreciate where sim plays its role now in terms of prepping drivers or getting them familiar with tracks and stuff like that too. So yeah, get your PC sorted quick and get back up to speed. Yeah. I want to see a Lee versus Max race on streamed through Twitch and stuff like that. I reckon that'd be cool.
Oh, we'll talk before.
I got to get a bit better before I do that.
Or maybe I can give you some driver training on the sims when you come down to Adelaide next week. You can pop in and use some of the sims here at work, and I'll give you some driver training on them.
I'll get Dad to get me. I'll ask Dad.
Yeah,
I'll probably come to you.
So with when you're saying that your dad owns, is he the he's like the head of Paralin in Australia, or is he do Shamik, or is that they're completely separate?
So Shamik was the old team with Paralin. But Shamik has now got moved aside, and now it's just Paralin Australia, which my dad owns. So he owns that team.
Yeah. And how big is it? How many drivers would they normally have at, say, an AKC meet, for example?
The AKC, we have 24, 25 drivers in a tent. So we've got the 2 Shamik tents and a few pop-ups, but later on we will be getting another tent with Paralin. And, yeah, we're processing to get all Paralin tents, and so it's a proper show.
Nice one. And your kart down here in Australia, is that a silly question, Paralin as well, or do you have something that gives you some familiarity for overseas?
Yeah, I've got a Paralin. Oh, if I ever go to overseas again, I'll be in a Paralin because I'm contracted from Paralin, Paralin, Italy, to drive a Paralin, or can't drive anything else unless I have to. Like the FIA had to drive an Xpree.
Yeah. And what did you think? I mean, what are the differences, or what are the things that you like about the Paralin versus, say, the Xpree that you had driven overseas?
So I personally think that Xpree is not a good go-kart. Like the brakes.
The brakes. Go for it. But it's an opinion.
Brakes are very good.
Yeah.
The steering is not the best. And Paralin's just got amazing brakes and brake so much deeper than I'm just confident with everything.
I've never seen a slow Paralin here in Australia. I mean, even at 4-stroke level, even the Paralin that Tim Murphy was using for a little while he was blitzing it. He normally drives an Arrow, and he decided to have a bit of a spin in a parallel recently with just a Torini on it, and the thing was a rocket ship. It was incredible. So, and he absolutely loved it. So there's been, for those that I know that drive parallels here in Adelaide, that they've got nothing but praise for it. So clearly it's a top-end car.
Well, our team next year will be expanding next year because people are getting in it, and more people are getting in the product, and people want to join the team.
And the brand won 3 national championships this year. So what wins on Sunday sells on Monday.
And I guess with I mean, do you have any drivers that you look up to or aspire to in any of the motor racing codes across the world?
No, not really.
None. So no F1 drivers, no supercar drivers.
I usually just watch. So the reason I came where I am now, because I always watched Harrison Hoey, like Brad Jenner, Jace Matthews. I just watched them go, and Dad just watch them go around the track and learn from them.
And nothing wrong with that. We had one of our earliest episodes. We had Troy Losco on the show. So we're going back way, like 2.5 years ago now, and he was the same. Which was surprising, So who was it that Troy liked? And he looked up to. It was one of the I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was one of the local guys that would race in Queensland, and was that was his hero. That was the person that he looked up to, and the people who he races against. So, hey mate, it doesn't have to be a big international star. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And if and you're going to be driving one of them later in the year, so that's even better. All right, and so with schooling and the like too. I mean, I know Sebastian gets we use Sebastian because he's one that's overseas, but his mum pretty much schools him from when they're in Italy. What about yourself? How do you sort of juggle that and balance all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, my mum will school me at homeschooling, just be there to help me.
And do you have, let's say motorsport doesn't turn out to be what you hope and dream for it to be, is there a plan B? Like, do you have a career or a want to say, hey, if I don't work out, I've got something else in line?
Not at the moment, but I'm looking to see what I want, because I don't really know what I want to do yet in terms of schooling and other stuff.
It's hard when you grow up doing motorsport because it's so much fun and it sets the bar so high that trying to think of doing anything else for the rest of your life is a bit boring.
Yes.
What about other sports? Like, for example, at school and stuff like that, were you a runner or a swimmer or play basketball, soccer, or anything like that?
Well, when I was younger and motorsport wasn't so, I wasn't so busy with motorsport, I used to say at school, I used to this things called running clubs. Used to do that, just run, and used to play soccer. I did lots of sport. Now it's just kind of gone away because I'm never actually at home. I'm always around the country.
Yeah, it's funny with once you at a very young age, what I'm starting to sort of understand with the younger drivers that we speak to is that they make a decision very, very early that it's motorsport and that is it. And so everything else that they do kind of supplements that. Whereas I suppose for someone like, say, myself, for example, where I wanted to have an aspiration to be a racing driver when I was young, but I didn't have the support from my parents and stuff like that. The plan B was always, the education piece. And then I do a heap of sport now in the background to sort of just keep me fit to race the car. I don't think myself, looking back, that, I had the ambition and the dream, but didn't have that infrastructure in place. So it's really cool that you've actually got that behind you now. But also that these young kids that are just so single-minded and focused, that is it. We're gonna throw everything at it, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like that could have been. I see it as, well, that could have been me if I had known then what I know now. You were like that too, weren't you, mate? You were very. At one point, it was karts, and then things changed.
Yeah, flat out.
Or was it the track testing?
Always at the track testing, and there was all one eyes forward in being motorsport, and then then reality set in when I knew that we weren't going to have the ability to go forward. So I just changed and pivoted, and now, I'm involved in karting still, or motorsport, just for work. So it's been good to be able to be pivoted and get back into it and make it my career.
We're very much advocates for women in motorsport. It's not often that you say you've got a mum that was involved in motorsport herself, but then also, we always try to sort of see what it's like at a global level, whether women and girls are being encouraged to race. Now, at Sebastian's level, it's still very, very male dominant, in the respect that they've got, as a sport, they've got a lot of work to do to kind of level the playing field a little bit, a lot of work to do. At your level, is it the same? Were there girls competing with you, and what's the general feeling like?
Well, yeah, there's lots of women that are very, very good at driving. Like, say Europe, there was two women that were battling out first, second, or third, like every race. So they're very good racers. And say this year, Cadet 12, Lana Flack, that she was winning the championship at one stage, and she was like one of the first cadet. She was the first cadet driver to win a round at the Australian Kart Championship. So
yeah, look, absolutely, and that's the thing. It's something that I think we need to be a bit more aware of, and it's good to hear that you acknowledge that. Whereas overseas, for example, at the top end level, it's almost non-existent still, which is quite sad. So you're very fortunate that you've got that influence in your life in the background too, I think, as well, that keeps you grounded, and you've got a role model there that that women can drive. Well, what can I say? It's been amazing having you on, buddy.
Thank you.
It's been, both Lee and I wish you all the best. I mean, we read the results quite a lot. We review a lot of the AKC stuff, and I said this to Sebastian the other week. We've read the name out many a time in terms of the results. So we definitely monitor and watch your progress, and hey, we look forward to seeing you one day lining up on the grid at Le Mans or Sebring or one of the major endurance events. That'd be pretty cool.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining the show there, Max, and best of luck. And yeah, we'll speak to you soon, and definitely keep in touch with us and let us know how your journey's going as well.
Yes, okay, thank you.
No worries.
Cheers, Max.
Cheers, bye.
You've reached the checkered flag of another episode of Negative Camber the Motorsport Show, proudly brought to you by Pro Karts Race Centre. A huge thank you to you, our incredible listeners. Your support and passion for motorsports fuels our enthusiasm to bring you the latest results, analysis, and interviews from the racing world. Keep that FOMO at bay by subscribing to Negative Camber on your favourite podcast platform. We'd also love it if you could leave us a review and share the show with your fellow racing enthusiasts. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Remember, Negative Camber is more than just a podcast. We're a community of dedicated fans who live and breathe motorsports. Follow us on socials, join us on our website, negativecamber.co, and be sure to subscribe to the Negative Camber Club for access to exclusive content, episode previews, and special deals from our amazing partners. Until next time, stay fueled with passion, embrace the Negative Camber, and keep chasing those podium finishes.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.